What do you do when life throws you a curveball that feels insurmountable? For many of us, the answer is to retreat, to allow fear and uncertainty to take the reins. But today, I have a remarkable guest who has transformed her personal challenges into a powerful force for good. Dr. Ashley Smith is a clinical psychologist, TEDx speaker, and the author of The Way I See It, a psychologist's guide to a happier life. Despite facing her own significant adversity, a rare degenerative retinal disease that has left her legally blind, Dr. Smith has dedicated her life to helping others navigate their mental landscapes and build resilience. As the co-founder of Peak Mind, the Center for Psychological Strength, she translates complex psychological concepts into actionable insights, empowering individuals to confront their anxieties and live boldly. Join me as we explore Dr. Ashley's journey, her insights on the science of happiness, and her invaluable tools for building psychological strength.
Sometimes life gives us lemons. Sometimes it gives us lemonade. Other times it gives us something entirely out of left field that makes us say, WTF. But no matter what obstacles come, there is most often a way out on the other side, and we are once again victorious. My name is Dr. Rowe, and you are listening to my podcast about resilience. Every guest shares a tragedy to triumph story to give listeners like you the inspiration to push through every single day. Listen now as my next guest shares how they were life-jacked.
Hi, Dr. Ashley. Welcome. Thank you so much for being a guest on my show. How are you? I am excited to be here, Dr. Rowe. Thank you so much. I love what you're doing and the messaging that you're putting out there. So really happy for our conversation today. Awesome. Now, Dr. Ashley, can you share with the listeners your personal journey and how your experiences have shaped your perspective on resilience and even happiness? Absolutely. So, by training, I'm a clinical psychologist and I have expertise in the area of anxiety. So, it means for, 20 years now, I have studied anxiety and worked one on one with people, helping them understand how our brains work, how they respond in situations, particularly in the face of uncertainty or unknowns or challenging times, and what it takes to overcome that. And I have to say that I'm very, very fortunate because a really nice side effect of my job is great coping skills. And I have used them continuously. So as a teenager and young adult, I was pretty socially anxious, shy, really worried about being judged. And ironically, that's what I ended up studying in graduate school with social anxiety. And as I started to read and learn about it, I had these light bulbs go off. I was like, oh, there's a lot of questions. So I started to learn more and started to really tackle my own anxiety as I was helping other people. But the side that a lot of people didn't know up until pretty recently is that I was born with a degenerative retinal disease. It's a really rare condition called occult macular dystrophy. And I spent the first 3.5 decades of my life with no answer. I saw specialist after specialist in state after state and passed a lot of the tests. And so I would constantly get this message of, we don't know what's wrong with your eyes. We don't know why you can't see, and we don't know how bad it's going to get. We don't think it's going to change. We think you're. And the doctors were wrong. So when I hit my mid-20s, my vision started to decline. And I was still really able to fake it. So I fake sight really well. A lot of people who meet me are surprised to learn that I'm disabled because you can't necessarily tell by looking at me. So depending on the context, you may not even be aware of it. So that faking sight came from anxiety, really. It was me working so hard to hide my disability because I was afraid of how people would react. I was afraid it meant that I was less than or that people would judge. And then about maybe 9 years ago, so I'm in my mid to late 30s at that point, my vision loss progressed to the point that I had to stop driving. And for me, that was a massive blow. It was just really clear before and after because making sight is fine until you're in a car and then you really can't fake it anymore. So I was thrust out of the disability closet, thrust way outside of my comfort zone. And I hate, to be perfectly honest, I was really scared and really sad. And I thought, there was no way that I could be happy, that blindness was going to equal really being miserable and alone and not being able to be successful or independent in the way that I really valued. I wallowed for a long time. My anxiety skills weren't cutting it. And at some point, though, I got so tired of being miserable that I decided, you know what, I have to do something. And I didn't know what else to do, so I dove into science and specifically into the science of happiness. And I started to really read and consume everything I could, figure out, I can't be the only one to have been dealt a blow. How do I bounce back from this? How do I go on to carve out a happy life? And so fast forward to now, and then a very long-winded story. My vision is worse than it's been. It still progresses every so often. Still don't know how bad it will get, but I'm happy and I'm not scared. And I'm doing bigger, bolder things that I never thought was possible, even when I still was driving.
Oh my gosh.
That's me.
Wow. Talk about the fact being like Jax for sure. It's
Yeah.
one of your five senses, right? Like that are just supposed to be innate and natural. And especially our eyesight, so you're incredibly courageous that, you didn't let that define who you are as a person. And I love that you just dove into science.
Mhm.
Then to the science of happiness at that. You're like, you know what? This may be happening to me, but I am still going to be happy. I love that. I love that. And I want to ask you, because you mentioned about as a teen that you had just a fear of being judged and a lot of social anxiety, but then you decided to study anxiety. And I just want to bring up social media, right? Social media right now, especially with teenagers and even those of us who are older teenagers, they say that social media actually has brought on more anxiety than we had. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think it definitely seems true. And I am incredibly grateful that I was a teenager in the era before social media and smartphones. So I think it's not going anywhere. The cat's out of the bag. So social media is here. And I think it is one of the things that is contributing to the increase in youth anxiety. I mean, we are seeing rates of anxiety skyrocket, not just in teens, but adults as well in a post-COVID world. And I think part of that is fallout from the pandemic. I think a lot of it is social media. And then the technology piece of always being plugged in, always kind of being performative, thinking about how is this going to go and how many likes am I going to get. And I think, really plays to some of the glitches and the unflattering tendencies of our mind. So I think social media is something we have to be incredibly careful with to make sure that it is a tool that we are using very intentionally and really paying attention to how it affects us and the quality of our mind in our daily life.
No, I definitely agree with you. I can tell that it works on me as well, right? Because I put out content. And although I have confidence and I've never been a person that, was worried about being confident or I didn't even really worry about being liked. I just was who I am. I'm Dr. Rowe now, but growing up I was Roro. And, I was kind of moving along in my world. I had friends or I didn't have friends or I just really didn't worry about it. But it's funny that now I have this show. As a matter of fact, I just made a little over a year, right? So just over a year, you're right. So just a little over a year. But what is interesting is I put out content and sometimes, weekly, like clockwork, and no one likes it. But then it's weird because then I get these random calls sometimes, or I run into friends and I'm like, oh, I love your show. It's so awesome. And I'm like, well, you never liked anything. I don't even know if you're
Right?
supposed to know. It's important, right? For listening to it, because when I get my stats, I don't know who's in the stats, right? But at least on social media,
Exactly.
but you're right. We're so trained. It's like the Pavlov's dog concept.
Absolutely.
I post it, right? I post it. We're supposed to like it or love it.
It's well, I mean, and I get experiences. I mean, just to like tell myself a little bit. Like I know all of this, and I know about the negativity bias. I know that when we get those likes, it's a little hit of dopamine. And so as a rule, personally, I try not to spend a lot of time on social media. I don't want to consume it. I know I'm a healthier human when I'm not on it. And then I keep getting this advice. If you want to grow your speaking career, if you want to let people know about your books, if you want to do this, you have to be on social. So I actually just decided to run a 6 month experiment. I do a lot of experimentation as a lifestyle. I like to run experiments, try things. So this is what I'm doing. 6 months of social media. I'm on TikTok and Instagram now, and it's been 3 weeks. Just dipping my toes in, and I can already see I want to check. I want to look at. Is it growing? Are they getting the likes? And the thing is, to your point, we never really know, right? I think about when I am on social, the content I consume, I don't necessarily like it or comment it or give any outward indication, but I have to be honest, two of the best pieces of life advice I've ever gotten were memes on Facebook. Oh, wow. I know my patients would be mortified to hear that. I mean, I'm pretty open about it, but one of them, and it ties in with resilience, is just because life gives you a cactus doesn't mean you have to sit on it. And I just thought, brilliant, right?
Wow.
And I spent years sitting on my particular cactus, this vision loss. Like it's all well and good to say, like, I'm happy now, but it was a journey to get here. And the other piece of brilliant life advice was something to the effect of choose your hard, right? Like going to the gym is hard, but having health issues is hard. Saying no is hard, but getting walked all over is hard. So it's just life is all about choosing your hard. So I think social can be a good thing, but it can definitely play their insecurities too.
So that means would hold the power of wisdom.
Right?
No, I know, right? You emphasize the importance of understanding how our minds work. So I know you shared a few things, but just what are some more key insights that have helped you kind of manage your anxiety or any other type of OCD related conditions?
Yeah, so I think even rather than anxiety and OCD, it's really important for people to understand that our minds do not process information in this actual objective way. So people tend to think of our brains as this like objective machine that's processing things. Like our perception of reality is capital P truth. This is how it is. But the way our minds really work is they're taking in all kinds of information, right? Every little bit of data, everything we can see, hear, smell, taste, touch, every second of the day. And they're scanning it and they're looking for signs of potential danger so that they can keep us alive. That's our brain's number one job is to keep you alive. But to do that, it has to process all of that information very, very quickly. So it develops shortcuts. And these shortcuts lead to biases and distortions in the way that we think. The one that's pretty popular that's particularly in the mainstream is the negativity bias. And that means all things considered equal, our brain is going to notice and remember bad stuff over good stuff. And if you don't know that and you don't train your brain to the contrary, then you're moving through life noticing the bad, remembering the bad, noticing the bad, remembering the bad. And I think it's really, really important for us to understand what we think isn't necessarily true. And a lot of the times it's not actually helpful. It's our negative mind trying to keep us safe. That's it.
Wow. Now, in your book, The Way I Think, you discuss various strategies for a happier life, which I think we all strive to have a happier life. I mean, who doesn't want to be happy? I don't think there's anyone that's walking around saying, I just want to have a really bad life, right? Okay. But, and then there's all these movies, right, about happiness and, and all of that. But what is one piece of advice that you find should be particularly transformative to your reader in the way I see it?
Just one. It's really hard. I think I'm gonna dive the question a little bit after though, but
Sure.
the book is basically a compilation of writings that I've done over the years. It's little short lessons that blend Dr. Ashley as the psychologist, but Ashley, the woman coming to terms with vision loss and trying to live a happy life. And it is broken down into how our mind works, so learning these, glitchy things about it. It's about dealing with emotions, really understanding difficult emotions, have healthy relationships, how to figure out who you are and what you stand for, and how to do hard things. And I think there's importance in all of those. But if I had to pick just a couple pieces of advice, I would encourage people to practice some sort of gratitude. And I don't mean it in a cheesy way or an Instagrammable way. I mean truly practicing noticing the good stuff, right? And it's to directly counteract that negativity bias. So I would encourage people to do that, to really look for the but at least moments. And there's a piece in the book, and I actually posted it on social media last week, a story of a Holocaust survivor who I listened to an interview with her several years ago, and she talked about where she said that no one talks about the good parts of the Holocaust. And it blew my mind because she wasn't saying it wasn't bad. She was saying it was horrible. It was just unimaginable atrocity. But even in those darkest moments, there were bright spots. And I took that as if Gerda can find a bright spot in the Holocaust, no matter how bad life gets for me, I can find it. So I would encourage everyone to do that. And it's not about toxic positivity. It's not saying this isn't awful. Like, I'm not sitting here going, I'm so glad I'm losing sight. I'm not. And I can still find things to be grateful for. The second piece, I would encourage anybody who will listen to me to try new things, continually. It is something I've been doing. Personally, I do it on a weekly basis, at least one new experience a week. I'm on year 7 or 8 at this point. And the reason is because when you're constantly seeking out new things, 1, it makes life interesting. 2, you have stories for days. And then 3, it helps you deal with uncertainty. So when you know that you can adjust the uncertainty, fear goes down and confidence goes up. And so I think it's a transformative practice that I wish everyone would adopt, particularly if you are prone to anxiety and OCD.
Now, you've mentioned that facing hard things is crucial for building resilience. And I'm going to be honest with you. I know that you just said, like your brain's job is to keep you safe. So, I'm sure that it's hard for us to, it is difficult for us to do these hard things, right? And I know that's your intuition, that's the meters and the antennas going off when something is not quite right. You feel it in your gut, right? So can you elaborate on, why it is crucial for us to, face hard things just to build resilience? And how in the hell do you do that? Is like, is there practice? Is it as simple as it sounds?
I think there are lots of ways to do this. I think resilience is so important because life is hard. It is a myth to think that you can get through life without a problem, right? I actually don't think problem-free exists at all, because if you solve one problem, you create another. Someone can walk up and give you $1 billion. That might solve financial problems, but now you got taxes and people coming out of the woodwork, right? So solve one problem, create another. So life is going to throw something at you. And so I think about resilience and psychological strength a lot like training. I historically have not been someone who loves going to the gym or lifting weights, but for the last couple of years, I do. It's become a really important thing. And I didn't love it in the beginning. It's hard, but you go and you lift weights and you build muscle and strength. The only way to get stronger is to lift heavy weight. it's the same thing psychologically. The only way to become resilient is to go through something hard. And it might be something hard like a diagnosis or losing a job or a person. But honestly, it could be little hard things too. That's part of why I love the practice of doing something new. I've not loved every experience that I've had, but I have learned through years of doing this that I can handle discomfort. I can handle awkward. And I think that's a really important thing for people to learn when you try things, when you take on challenges, right? I work with my patients to take on bravery challenges. In the clinical world, it's called exposure, but it's essentially facing your fears because you learn one of two things. Either that scary thing didn't actually happen, so your brain was lying to you, or two, it does happen, but you can handle it. And that's maybe even more important to know. I've been toying with this idea lately, so you're my guinea pig, Dr. Rome. Haven't really talked it through with anybody, but I think trust is really, really important, right? And we all want to see ourselves as trustworthy. We think about trust in relationship to other people. But I think trust in your relationship with yourself is probably the most important. Can you trust you? Do you know that when it hits the fan, that you can handle it? That's real confidence. That's real resilience. And it only comes from being tried and being tested. I think for it. Go for big things. What's the worst that happens? You fail. Okay, it sucks. And then you pick yourself up and you keep going.
No, absolutely. Wow, that is huge. That is a good question to ask yourself. Do you trust your own self? Yeah, like I had to sit and think about that for a moment. Do I truly trust myself? And I think I do, to be honest. I trust myself within, my job. I trust myself as a parent. But if you know what, actually, but leading my own life, that, yeah. But I think a lot of fear, I mean, anxiety, whatever form or flavor it takes, right? So, social anxiety, OCD, just run-of-the-mill anxiety, no matter what the bad thing it is that it's worrying about, the what if or the oh no, it really boils down to something bad is going to happen and you can't handle it. But if you know I can handle being uncomfortable, I can handle failure, I can handle rejection, I can handle hard, then fear doesn't have as much power over you. Comfortable. Yeah. But I don't know if you built a tolerance for it. Your ability to handle it. That makes total sense. Total sense. Now I have to commend you on a wonderful achievement or accomplishment. I mean, and congratulate you. So you did a TEDx talk. So congratulations on that. I'm so awesome. I know, I'm there, and you were probably leading up to that moment. You were like, "Oh my gosh, I'm really going to do this."
What's this? To share about that was what I collected a lot of rejections before I got a yes. So I stopped counting at 8 or 9. So, but I figured I've seen other people do it. My business partner, my co-founder at Peak Mind, Dr. April did one, and she's amazing, and it was a great talk. But I figured, well, if she can do it, I can do it if I'm willing to keep trying. So I got a lot of no's before yes. But then when it came to prepping, I do a lot of public speaking. I love to speak. But when I did the audition for this one, it was 3 minutes on Zoom. I have never been that anxious. It caught me off guard, like full adrenaline dump. And I'm saying my script and I'm looking down and I'm watching my hands shake. And I'm thinking, what is happening? So I was worried the same thing would happen on stage. So I practiced in the way that I would help my patients train, which is face the fear, right? Including the sensation. So I got myself really amped up before I practiced going for my top. Like I drank a bunch of caffeine. I did squat jumps to get my heart rate up, and I hyperventilated because it feels like panic. And then I practiced my top so I could get used to doing it in that state of anxious arousal. And it paid off tremendously. So I was able to have fun on stage and know that even if I got that adrenaline dump, I guess back to trust, like I knew that I could handle it because I had practiced that so many times.
I love that, which, makes total sense because the TEDx talk is your brain deceiving you, which it touches on cognitive distortions, which I have a huge one with amazingly when I say it, people say, really, Dr. Fields? But I have imposter syndrome. I am horrible.
Wow.
And I mean, it's encouraging. Despite the successes I have had with this show, of my previous show, or anything I've done and accomplished in life, I still feel like I don't know if I belong, wherever I am. But it's crazy, but how can people recognize and then combat? And I really mean that when I say combat, not just like deal with it or mitigate it. I mean combat.
Yeah, absolutely. So one, I appreciate yeah, I appreciate you sharing that, right? Because I think that's so important. And I can share the same thing. Like, I am someone who chases big goals, and I've been putting myself out there. And then I'm learning that part of my process is I get really excited, I put it out there, then I second get that voice kicks in, right? And mine is, what did you do?
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
And I know, okay, I'm learning that's just part of my process. So I think the more we talk about it and we can name it, that's helpful. But in terms of concrete, how do we combat it? One of the biggest things that I tell people is you are not your mind. And that is a statement that's out there. But what it really means is you have to understand that you are not your mind, in the sense of, like, when your stomach growls, we don't say, I am growling. We say, oh, my stomach is growling. And maybe I feed it, or maybe I don't. Maybe I just say, like, oh, it's not time for food yet. When my heart pounds, I don't say I am pounding, it's my heart pounds. And sometimes that means I might slow down or I might keep going. So stomach growl, my heart pounds, mine sink. That's just what they do. It's a thought generating organ, and it is not the same as you. So I really am a big fan of separating out the two. So with my patients, I'll say things like, that's OCD talking. So we really separate it. That's you and that's OCD, or that's you and that's anxiety. But in my own language, if you have a conversation with me, outside of work, I'm going to say things like, I'm having the thought, or my mind is telling me I should or shouldn't do this. So I really give credit to my mind, right? My mind is telling me this. And I think when we start to do that, you can name it, there's imposter syndrome. I'm not going to feed it, right? I'm not going to let it take over and be the boss of me. With kids, I'll say things like, you're going to boss back anxiety. Either if you give in to it, it wins, it gets the point. If you stand up to it, you win, you get the point. If you do that time and time again, that voice gets quieter. So I kind of approach it more that way. Sometimes you can argue it. Where's your proof? What happened last time? Do you know that for sure? But anxiety will often come back with, like, but what if this time is different? So I'm just a big fan. Name it, label it, and then boss it back. And know that it's going to be uncomfortable while you do. And I think there's a big piece in giving yourself credit of, you know what, you're doing something really brave and something that's important to you, and it's worth feeling anxious. That anxiety just means you're stretching your comfort zone.
I love that. So label it, name it, and then boss it back.
Yep.
I love it. I love it. Someone who has experienced significant vision loss, what role has your support system played in your journey? And do you feel like it's important for us to seek support from others?
Mm-hmm. I think it is incredibly important to seek support. Human beings are designed to be social creatures. Our nervous systems are regulated through social support. So just a broad stroke, it is important to lean on social support, especially during hard times. And we don't do a good job of that in the American culture because we really pride ourselves on independence. And so many people struggle for help. And so I think we need to really push back on that and use support. Personally, it was unintentional, but incredibly transformative. It is the reason why I have been able to find happiness. And it's what really the turning point for me was I published my story online to raise money for the foundation fighting blindness. They're the ones who are having research that if there's going to be a cure, they're going to find it. I decided to really make a contribution. And as part of my fundraising effort, I wrote about my story. I published it online. I hit send to everybody in my email contact list, and I put it on social media. And then I went fetal, like in the floor. I thought I was going to vomit. I thought I was just going to cry uncontrollably. I was so scared because I had put it out there and there was no taking it back, right? I couldn't unring that bell. Everybody was going to know that I am disabled. And the support that I got, right, when I showed up, I was really into ballroom and swing dancing at the time, and that was a big part of my community. Where I showed up to my next swing practice, I got hugs, I got offers to a ride, people saying, "We're here for you." I had no idea. And then a lot of people didn't treat me any differently. And that alone was huge because it just challenged all of those fears that had held me back for 36 years at that point. And the social support was huge. And then along the way, as I have continued to experiment with being more authentic, being more vulnerable, asking for help, saying, "Oh, I can't see that," letting people see how much I have to magnify my computer, and really just being out there, the support has been amazing. And that is what has allowed the really deeply held shame that I had around that. I didn't even know that's what it was for so long, that it was really deep shame around the perceived flaw. Social support is what is erasing that. And I think we all carry shame. We all have some sort of "this makes me different, other, less than." And the only way I know to truly combat that is to shine light on it. And that is to lean on support and let yourself be seen. And so I think it's huge.
No, most definitely. Now, you are the co-founder of Peace Mind Center for Psychological Strength. So, can you kind of clear up or explain the concept of psychological strength, but how does it differ from just the traditional notions of resilience?
Yeah, I have.
Okay, but I have, and it's that, is it psychological strength resilient?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. So I have to be fully transparent here. We made up the term psychological strength because we're saying, all right, you know what? We want to take a stuff that we know from the field of psychology that is hidden inside therapy rooms and ivory towers of research. And we want to make it accessible to everybody because any human with a brain needs to know this stuff so that you can bounce back when life gets hard, that you can perform at your peak, and that you can live joyfully. So we took this, we said, well, what's a term that would resonate with people that people would understand? And we're like, well, we know what strength is. Well, let's call it psychological strength. So our model of psych strength, we did dive into research and theory and kind of pull what are the skills, and we use the term mindset, but what are the beliefs or the knowledge pieces that are really important to be a resilient and psychologically flexible person and that promotes well-being. So I would say psych strength definitely maps onto resilience is your ability to bounce back from hardship. We would say it's that plus psychological flexibility, which is, and it's a technical term that means your ability to have difficult thoughts and feelings and not be ruled by them. So clearing out imposter syndrome and going ahead and doing what's important. And then well-being, right? How do we get more of the good stuff, like from positive psychology? So our model of psych strength includes 6 pillars: mindfulness, thinking, emotional, like emotions, go emotional intelligence, yourself, so your values, strengths, and identity, relationships with others, and habits and behaviors. And we think these are the things that if everybody knew, everybody would be kind of moving through life a little bit better.
Wow, that's amazing. And it's weird because we never know what's going to happen in the future, right? Because we definitely couldn't have predicted COVID.
The fact that I understand
The whole entire world shutting down. Because I know in the field of education, like we would have never thought that we can work from home. Like that's just not
right.
Looks like that's just not who we are, right? So, but what are some science-backed strategies to find happiness despite life's challenges? Because like we are running around getting life jacked all the time. And I mean, even today, like I've, started out, I had a screw in my tire. My child was having a difficult time at school, so we had to pick up, but I couldn't pick him up because, I got summer, so they're trying to, I mean, just one thing after another, a couple of work challenges, and I just was like, this is just the worst day. Now, that's not totally being life jacked, right? Not totally. But, Yeah, but it's a bad day, right? But there are some times that you just keep going through challenge after challenge after challenge after challenge. And so, how in the world do you find happiness within that?
Yeah. Yeah. I think, oh, there's so many things here. So keeping it short, if you really want to look at levels of happiness, uh, three practices I would highly recommend. Gratitude, I've already mentioned, it is definitely linked to higher levels of happiness. Mindfulness, so a lot of people think of that as meditation. That is just one of many, many ways to practice being mindful. Being mindful is just paying attention to right now without judging it. So think of it as single tasking. If you're thinking about what you're doing right now in the moment and you're not saying this is terrible, then you're being mindful. But mindfulness is linked to all the good stuff. And if you really want to level it up, throw in self-compassion. So that's mindfulness, but being kind to yourself. Those are the three practices that I would highly recommend in terms of boosting your happiness. We also know things like relationship quality, relationships are probably the single biggest predictor of a good life. So really investing into your relationship matters. I don't, for me, there's some other things when it comes to happiness that I think really are important. One is focusing on control. I see this clinically all the time. We want to be in control, but we try to control the things that we can't. And we don't control the things that we can. So we want to control outcomes or the future or what other people think or feel or do. And none of that is up to us. Instead, what we can control are things like our attention to mindfulness, our attitude, back to gratitude and self-compassion. And I can control my actions so I can do helpful things even if it's uncomfortable. So I think really getting clear on control makes a big difference too. And then really understanding that happiness isn't the same as pleasure. And people mix that up all the time. A lot of times people say happy when they mean pleasant or enjoyable. Like the first bite of ice cream, that's pleasant. But the 100th, not so much. The 1,000th, now I'm sick, right? So happiness isn't about pleasure, everything feeling good. Happiness is, I think, bigger than that. And it's, am I doing what matters? Am I doing what matters to me? Am I being a good person? Am I living in accordance with my values? Am I focusing on what I have and what truly is important?
I love that. Now, what message do you hope to impart on the listeners, or what do you hope that they can take away from this interview about embracing adversity and living a bold life?
Yeah. I would look at this. I think a lot about death, which sounds morbid and probably came out of left field. But I think a lot about, like, at the end of my life, what is future Ashley going to say? And I want her to be able to say, I lived well, right? That I lived a bold life, that I took chances, that I didn't let fear hold me back. So I want people to take that. But ultimately, yeah, our motto at Peak Mind is your mind can be your most valuable asset or your biggest liability, and you get to choose. I want everybody to make the right choice. Learn what you can about how your mind works and take ownership of your life experience.
Wow, what a word. Well, thank you, Dr. Ashley Smith, for sharing your incredible insights and personal journey with me and the listeners today. Your passion for helping others understand their minds and navigate life challenges is truly inspiring. As we wrap up,
You.
I hope our listeners take to heart your message about the power of resilience and the importance of facing difficult emotions. So, how can listeners find you on social media or get involved with Peak Mind, the Center for Psychological Strength, or purchase your book, The Way I See It, A Psychologist's Guide to a Happier Life?
Yeah, so the book is available through Amazon or not Amazon. Both are linked through my website, which is Dr. Ashley Smith. So that's DrAshleyMith.com. On social, it's at Dr. Ashley Smith on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. And those would be the best ways. My work through Peak Mind is really geared toward organizations or companies So if you are interested in having us come in and speak with your team or with your organization, shoot us an email. That website is peakmypsychology.com, and you can email through either website will get to me, and I will help figure out where we need to go from there.
Again, if you'd like to learn more about Dr. Smith's work, including her book and TEDx talk, be sure to check out her website at www.drashleysmith.com. And that's Ashley, that's DrAshleySmith.com. Let's continue to support one another in building the psychological strength we need to live boldly, no matter the circumstances. Dr. Ashley, I wish you and your family nothing but blessings and abundance. Thank you for being a guest. Please take care.
Thank you so much for having me, Dr. Rowe. I appreciate the work we're doing and having a chance to talk with you.
Dr. Ashley Smith, everyone, be sure to join us next time for more uplifting stories and insights on resilience. Until then, keep pushing forward, embrace the journey, and remember that every setback can lead to a greater comeback. Dr. Rowe, signing off.
I surely hope you enjoyed this episode for this week. If you would like to connect with me so you won't miss an episode, please connect with me on LinkedIn, Dr. Renika Jacobs, or you can find me on Instagram at Resilient Dr. Rowe. See you in the next episode.